Welcome to part 7 of this tutorial series where we're creating this industrial building. If you haven't seen the previous parts, definitely check out the tutorial playlist linked in the description. So in this part, we're going to be modeling a bunch of different objects like the chairs, and we're going to be modeling some building lights and some gutters and also some blinds over the windows. And then one more thing before we start, I wanted to let you know about a really great Blender add-on for easy, fast texture baking. Oven is an amazing Blender add-on for speeding up the baking process. Start by UV unwrapping your objects. You can then select the objects that you want to bake. You can then choose what maps to bake, like the color, roughness, normal, metallic, and more maps. Then choose your preferred settings, like where to export the textures, the file name, file type, and texture size. Then hit bake, and the add-on will automatically bake all the textures and export them to your computer. Then click the Recreate Materials button, and the add-on will automatically replace the material with a new material using the bake textures. You can find my full add-on review video with the link in the description, and by purchasing through my link, you'll be helping to support this channel. So let's start by modeling the chairs. So I'll just go back to the solid view, and I'll just select everything, and I'll just hide it. I'll use Shift-C to center the 3D cursor, and we're just going to add a cube for the chair. So I'll zoom into the chair. Now I do just want to unhide the characters here, so if I just click to open up the characters, let me just unhide the first character we have there, and I'll just move the character over, because I can use this character to kind of get a good size for the chair. So I'll go into edit mode, and I'll first scale the entire thing down and move it up on the Z-axis, so it's resting on that line there, on the X-axis line. We'll go to top view, and I'm going to scale everything down, and I'll use Shift-Z to exclude the Z-axis, and we're just going to make that first leg of the chair, and I'll move it back here. Let's also select this guy and move him over so I can kind of see that a bit better. So I'll scale it again on the Shift-Z so it excludes the Z-axis. We'll just make that first leg of the chair, and actually I want to make this the first one here on the front because the one on the back is going to rotate a bit. And I'll just box select the top here and move the entire thing down just a little bit. So let's now go to the modifiers, and we're going to add a mirror modifier, and we'll mirror it over on the X-axis, and we'll also turn on the clipping there on the mirror. And also here on the cube here, this cube is out of the collections, so we'll click and drag and we'll drop it here into the buildings collection, so the chair is in the main buildings collection. So now I'll duplicate this and I'll bring it over here, and let's go to the side view. We'll move our character out of the way. We'll go back into edit mode, and I'm going to add a loop cut here and drag the loop cut over so that this part of the chair, the back of the chair, is kind of rotating over slightly. And I'll box select this part here and bring it forward a bit. Then I can box select this here and bring it back. I'll add another loop cut with Control R, bring this forward a bit, and add another loop cut here, bring that forward, and add another loop cut and bring that forward. So the back of the chair is kind of slightly rotating, and I think that's actually a little bit too far. So I'm gonna box select these and move them back a little bit so it's a little bit more subtle. Then I'll add another loop cut here, and let's bring it forward a little bit. Box select this part here, and we can extrude this part up and bring it back a little. And we'll also rotate it a little bit. Let's also box select this loop right there and rotate that, and I'll box select this and rotate that as well. Then I'll add a loop cut on this one, and we'll add it right in there in the center, and then I'll hold down the Shift and Alt key and select both of these loops here, and I'll add a bevel to both of them, and then let's go back to solid view, and I want to select this face here and also select this face here, and we're just going to delete those faces. So now we're going to go to the vertex select, and I'll select these vertices, and I'll fill them, select these two vertices and these two, and I'll fill them, and I'll just continue to do that all the way around to make that support there. And then if I go back to wireframe, I'm going to box select the front of it, and let's bring the front of it back because it's a little bit too far back there. And then it looks like we need to select all of the chair, and we need to scale it up and move it up a little bit because it is a little bit too small. Let's also select the bottom here and pull the bottom down so it's a bit farther down. And then I'll just adjust this curve here, and we'll add another loop cut right here just to make it just rounding over. Go into wireframe, kind of make that rounding a little bit, and this as well. So the back of the chair is rounding just a bit. And I want to extrude out this top part again, so I'll go into wireframe. We're just going to box select the top here, and let's extrude out a little bit farther so it's even longer. So now we'll select these 4 vertices here, and I'll fill a face there. And then we'll select this face here, and I'll extrude this face up here. Let's add another loop cut at about the same height. So you can go to front view or side view. You can double tap the G key, move it up and down. All right, and now I just want to fill that there. So let's go here to the face select. We'll select both of these faces here, and we'll delete the faces. Then we'll select these 4 and we'll fill them. We'll select these 4 and we'll fill them there. And then these 4 here, we will fill a face there. And then if I go back into edit mode and go into wireframe, I need to box select the top part and kind of move it down because it's a little bit too high up. And now we are going to select this face here and we'll extrude this face out and merge it with the mirror. And then we just want to delete those faces. Let's also select this one here and this one here, and we'll extrude these out and merge them with the mirror, and then just delete the faces on the inside. All right, let's select this top face here. So select the top face. Again, we'll go to side view. I'll extrude this out one more time so it's even higher. Then I'll add a loop cut right here so that that is a square. And I'll go to the face select. We'll select this face and extrude that back there. And then again, we can delete the faces. So now we have the back of the chair. And I'm also going to go to wireframe. I'm going to box select this entire side of the chair, and I'll scale it down so it's a bit more thin and bring it out so it's a little bit wider. Let's bring our character forward and kind of see how that's looking. So I think that chair is a little bit big. So I'll scale the chair down just a little bit. Like that. If you wanted to, you could like go into pose mode and you could rotate the legs and kind of have them sit in the chair if you wanted to get it more accurate. That's pretty good. Maybe just make the chair a little bit smaller. So we'll go back into edit mode of the chair, and I'm going to go to the face select. We'll select this face and I'll duplicate it, move it out. We'll scale the entire thing a bit bigger, and then we'll scale it down the Z-axis to kind of flatten it like that. And we'll bring it over to the end and we'll extrude it out. So extrude it out like that. Then we'll select this entire piece here, we'll duplicate it and move it over, and then because we moved it over all in one action and duplicated it in one action, I can now press Shift R to repeat the last action, and we'll do that a couple more times. And then if you want to, you can select all of these and you can kind of scale them and move them around just to put it in the very center there. And then also if I select everything, I need to recalculate the normals. So I want to now do pretty much the same thing, but up here on the back of the chair. So I'll select one of these pieces with the L key, I'll duplicate it, move it up here, and we'll rotate it by 90 degrees on the X-axis. Let's go to side view and I can bring it over here and rotate it. Just stick it there and then scale it up so it just fits the chair. So scale it up like that. Then we can add like 2 loop cuts right here. And if I go to side view, I can move the loop cuts over so that it kind of bends just a little bit. Let's select the entire thing and bring it back a little bit like that. All right, and then I'll bring it over really close, and then I'll duplicate it, move it over, and then I can press Shift R to repeat the last action and do that a few more times. And actually, I don't think I want to do that the last time. Then I'll just select all of these and I'll scale them up a bit, move them over, and just kind of fit them there in the chair. That's pretty good. Let's now shade this object smooth, and we need to add a bevel to this object. So here on the modifiers, we're going to search for the bevel modifier, and we'll turn the segments up to maybe like a 3, and we'll turn the amount down so it's pretty small, like that. Then let's also add a weighted normal. So I'll go to the add menu and we'll search for a weighted normal. We'll add that modifier, and you can see the weighted normal really does improve the mesh, because you can see here it is before. It almost looks slightly round on the edges, but by adding the weighted normal, it really flattens out those faces there. So that is it for the chair model. So I'll press Alt-H to unhide everything. Let's just select this character, kind of move him back here. And then if I select the chair, I'll move it forward and bring it up here. And I can bring the chair back. Let's maybe give it a random rotation. We'll put one chair here, and I want to make sure the chair is resting right there on the patio. Let's bring it back a bit, and then I'll duplicate it. We'll put another chair over here. And then I'll duplicate it again, and we'll put another chair right here. So now I'm going to add the dark metal material, so I'll select all the chairs. And lastly, I'm going to select this piece up here, which is the dark metal. I'll use Control L, and we're going to link the materials. But now if I select this chair and go here to the materials, I want to duplicate this to make it a separate material. So I'll click on this button here, which has the 2 little pieces of paper. It kind of looks like a file icon. Duplicate that, and I'll rename this to chair. And then if I click on this chair, I want to instead change it to the chair material, and this one here, change it to the chair material. Now for the chair material, we'll go here to the shading, and I want it to look similar, but if I zoom in here, I do want it to be a bit darker. So let's just go here to the base color, and I'm going to make it fully black so it is a darker chair. Now I also think the chair is a bit too reflective, so what I can do is add a hue saturation value and put this here after the color ramp, and then I can just drag this value up, and if I turn the value up, it's going to make it a little bit less reflective. So I might just turn the value to a 2, so it still is kind of shiny, but it's not quite as reflective. And then one more thing that I want to do to the chairs is I want to select all the chairs, and I want to apply the scale. That way when I go up into the rendered view and kind of take a look at that, the scale is going to be applied, so the noise texture is going to be the correct size. Whereas before, I think the noise texture was a bit too small or too large, so by applying the scale, that's going to make the noise texture the correct size. So now let's create the building lights. So I'll go back to the layout, and for the building lights, I'm going to add a cylinder, and right behind me on the cylinder settings, I'll turn the cylinder vertices to 16 so it's not quite as high geometry. Let's zoom into the cylinder, and I'm first going to bring the cylinder up here, and we'll scale it down a bit. Let's bring it forward a bit. And once it's down to the scale that I like, about there, I will apply the object scale. So I now go into edit mode and I'm going to scale it all up on the Z-axis to make it longer. And then if I select this bottom face right here, I will inset the face and I'll extrude it back up. Actually, I don't want it to be quite that big or quite that small, make it a bit bigger and then extrude that up like that, and the light is going to be inside that cylinder there. So now I'm going to add a loop cut, and I'll scroll my mouse wheel so there are 2 loop cuts, left click and right click so they stay in the center, and I'm going to scale these loop cuts down a bit, and I'll bring the entire thing forward in object mode, and then if I go back into edit mode, I want to go to the face select, and I'm just going to select some of the faces here on the back. I'm going to select these 4 faces which are on the back, and I'm going to extrude them out, and then we can scale them on the y-axis, and we'll type 0. All right, I'll bring it back a bit farther, go back to object mode, and we're just going to stick it here into the building. Just stick it there, maybe move it up a little bit, and that's going to be it for the light. So now let's add the bevel modifier. So we'll go add modifier. We're going to add the bevel modifier. Let's turn the segments up to probably just like a 2, and then we will shade the object smooth. And then for this object, we can go to the materials and we can just search for the black metal, and we're going to add the black metal material. But then right here, I want to add a light. So we'll go into edit mode and I'm going to select that face there. We'll click on the plus to add a new material. Let's add a new material. I can just rename this to light. And then if we open up the surface right here, instead of the principled shader, we want to click on this and we want to change it to an emission instead. And then I want to turn the strength up to 4 so it's brighter. And here in the color, I will make it kind of like a slight yellowish color. Let's go into the rendered viewport mode just to see how this is looking. Now you can see the light isn't very bright and it is daytime, so maybe the outdoor lights would be turned off, but it's kind of down in shadow right down here. It's down in shadow, so I am going to have a little bit of lights and have those lights turned on. So what I'll do is go to the add menu and we're going to go to light and I'm going to add a point light, and we'll move the point light up and we're going to bring it forward, and I'm going to just stick it right here, right underneath that light there. So now if I go into the rendered view, we'll take a look at that. You can see it's now kind of adding this light there, and it looks like the light is shining down out of that light. Now if I click here to go to the object data properties to go to the light settings, I want to turn the power to 5 so it's not quite as bright, and we'll make the color kind of a yellowish color. And then here on the radius, I want to make it bigger so it's a softer light, so I'll turn the radius to 0.5 and now it's an even softer light. So now if I go into the camera view, kind of zoom in there, you can just see it a little bit. It is kind of hard to see, and I might even want to move the camera down a bit. So if I select the camera, I might want to move it down a little bit and then kind of rotate it just so that you can maybe see those lights a bit better. So now I want to add some more lights. So I'm going to select both of these objects here. So this light and then the actual light object. We'll duplicate this and I'm going to move it over, and we're going to put one of them right over here. If I go into the camera view now, you can see that one just a little. So now we'll duplicate this light and we'll move it up here, and let's go to front view, and I'm going to kind of stick here in the corner. Then we'll duplicate it and put one in the center, duplicate it again, and we'll put one here in this corner. Let's go into the camera view and go into the rendered view. Just want to see how that's looking. So now we have some little lights there, and these lights are actually pretty dim. So I don't know, maybe turning them up to a 10 might look a bit better. I think I will do that. I'll just turn them up to a 10. So I'll just go through these lights. I think a 10 is a little bit better for the brightness. So let's now add the gutter objects. So we'll go to mesh. I'm going to add a cylinder, and on the cylinder settings, make sure the vertice is set to 16. So I'm going to move the gutter out here. Let's go into edit mode, and I'm going to scale it down so it's much smaller. And then if I zoom into it, I want to delete the top face and the bottom face. So just select the top face there and the bottom face, and we'll delete both of those faces. And then I can select the entire thing, and I want to scale it up so it's much longer. If I go back to object mode, I want to bring this over here into this corner. We're going to start by adding one gutter kind of in this corner. So let's bring this gutter up here. We can also shade it smooth. And then if I go into edit mode, I want to scale up even longer and kind of bring it up so it just goes into that metal part. And then if I go to front view, I'll go into wireframe and I'll zoom into the very bottom here. I'll go to the edge select, actually the vertex select. I'm just going to select the bottom vertices, and I'm just going to extrude them and rotate them. And we're just going to make kind of the end of the gutter, which is coming down, to kind of bring the water away from the building and kind of bring it down into the grass. So something like that. That gutter might be a little bit large. It kind of depends on the gutter. Some gutters are pretty big, but other gutters are a lot smaller. I'm just gonna do something like that. All right, that's pretty good. Maybe bring it down a bit farther so the water goes away from the house into the grass there. So I'll now select this gutter and we can go to the materials. Let's add a new material and I can just call this gutter. And this material will be pretty simple. I'm just gonna make the base color kind of like a mid-gray color. I'll turn the metallic value all the way up to 1, so it is metal, and I'll turn the roughness down to like a 0.4. So I can now duplicate the gutter and move it over here. We're gonna stick it right over here, kind of on the other side of the patio. So just bring it over and then rotate it by 90 degrees. All right, and we're gonna bring it over here and stick it in that little corner. There's a little spot in between the gray bricks and the patio. We'll just stick it there right up against the building. So let's now create the window blinds. So for the window blinds, I'm gonna start by adding a plane. And let's bring the plane out so I can see it better. We're gonna go into edit mode and I'm gonna scale it way down so it's really thin. And then I wanna rotate it. I'll rotate it on the x-axis by 45 degrees, but I wanna rotate it by negative 45 degrees. So that way the front part here, which is gonna be towards the front of the windows, is going up instead. So let's go back to object mode. We'll go here to the modifiers and we're gonna add an array modifier to array out each one of those little window blinds. Now here on the z-axis, on the array, we need to turn that to 1. And on the factor here, on the factor x, we need to turn that to 0. So now I can turn up the count, we can turn up quite large, and you can see now we have some nice window blinds. And I'm actually going to turn the factor z to a 1.5, and that way there's going to be a little bit of space in between the window blinds. So we'll bring the window blinds over, let's bring it into the building, we'll stick it up here, we'll just put it into this one first. So we'll just bring it back so it's just inside the building, just past the window. So bring it over like that. And I think I want to scale them all down a little bit more. And then if I go into edit mode, I need to go into wireframe and I'll go to front view and I can scale the window blinds on the x-axis going back and forth to make sure it fits the size of the window. So just make it the same size as the window and then you can bring it right up here. And if I go back to solid view, you can see that window blind is coming through. So I just need to turn the array count down so it's not going through the building there. So I'll go into the rendered viewport mode. We're just gonna see how that's looking. And there we go, we have some nice simple window blinds. And if I were doing a render much closer up, then I'd probably want to model some more detailed window blinds, maybe add the chords and also maybe add some thickness to them. But this is going to be really far away, so we can just model some simple window blinds. They're going to be a lot farther away from the camera, so we don't need to model it in a ton of detail. Now I do want to add a material to the window blinds because then when we duplicate it, they'll all have the same material. So I'll go here to the material settings, let's click on new, and I can just call it blinds. And for this one, for this material, I'm gonna make the roughness, I'll turn it way down to like a 0.1, so it's kind of a shiny plastic. And then here on the base color, I just wanna make it slightly more of a gray color so it's not super bright. Let's go into the rendered view, we'll just see how that material is looking. So we can now go to front view and we can duplicate the window blinds, move it over here, and then I can like bring it down, make one maybe which is longer, duplicate it again, move it over, and then we can have one really high up. And if it's really high up, it's going to go through the building. So if we go back to the modifiers, we just need to turn the count down, then duplicate it again, move it over here. This one can be kind of in the middle, so we can turn the count up. And we're just going to continue to do that for all the window blinds. So duplicate one here. This one here, I can maybe make a much longer one, or it could maybe even cover the entire window. Duplicate this again. We're going to put some more over here. So let's stick that right there. We need to turn the count down. Duplicate this again over to this side and bring this one up a bit. Now you can see for these window blinds, they're coming out too far. That's because we need to select both of these and we need to move them back because this building in the center is farther back. So we'll bring it right there, just going past the window. And then we'll duplicate these again. Let's move them over here. We can add more window blinds to these ones. So I'll stick one of them right about there. And then this other one I can put right there. And we'll duplicate this one again, and each one is going to have a random size, so some of the blinds are going to be lower down, other blinds are going to be higher up, so it's kind of like each person maybe change the random size of the blinds if they wanted shade or if they wanted a clear view through the window, kind of let the daylight come through the window. So we'll duplicate this one again, make that a bit bigger. All right, so let's go into the rendered view. We're gonna see how those look, and they should look just kind of random. So you can see some of them are lower and some of them are higher, and that's looking quite nice. Now, if you take a look at this window here, you can see the HDRI in the background underneath that, and that's definitely not really good. That just doesn't really look good. So what I'm going to do is go back to solid view, and I'm going to select this object here. This is the road, and I'm just going to duplicate the road and move it over, and I'm going to put the road here underneath the building, and I can bring it down just slightly to make sure it's not overlapping and going through the ground. So now if I go into the camera view, go up into the rendered viewport mode, we'll just take a look at that, and you can see now down there in the building it looks quite dark, and so that looks a lot better. So now the only thing we have left in this part is to duplicate the blinds and put some more right over here. So what I can do is just select this building and hide it, and then I can just select all of these window blinds here, and I'll duplicate them. We're going to move them over. I can rotate it by 90 degrees on the z-axis. We're actually going to rotate it by negative 90 degrees, and I can just stick it here, and they should just fit up to this building once I get it in the correct spot. So we'll bring it back here. Let's go to side view, and we can go into wireframe view. We can move them over here and just fit them right there. All right, that's looking good. So they're all lining up. However, I do want to give them each like a random scale because I want them to be different from the other one. So maybe move this one up here, this one maybe move down, this one here, maybe move this down and turn the count up. And this one here, we can move this up a bit. And let's change these ones. This one can go up a bit. All right, let's go into the rendered view. Again, I just want to see how that's looking. So I'll zoom in there. Now you can see there's just some little blinds there along the building in the background. So let's press Alt-H to bring back the other objects that we hid there. And I'll save this again with Control-S. And this will wrap it up for this part of the tutorial series. So I hope you've been enjoying the tutorial series so far, and we are almost finished. So in the last part, in part 8, we're going to be modeling the trees. So we're going to be modeling some leaves and some branches, and then we'll be modeling a tree trunk, and we'll use geometry nodes to place the branches and the leaves on the tree, and then we'll put the tree around the scene, and then we'll finish up the entire scene and get the final render. So to watch the final part, I'll have the link in the video description, and I'll have it right up there on the end screen when it's released. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the final part.